Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. I am Heena Gambir. On Urban Debate tonight, let's try and decode India's high fuel tax and politics around it. Is there scope for us to expect some relief in the near future? By the way, fuel prices in the country have not changed since 6th of April. So why are we talking about fuel price pain tonight? Well, because for the first time, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spoken about the rise in fuel prices. Actually, he chaired a meeting with the chief ministers today to review COVID situation in India. And after that, he said that centre reduced excise duty on fuel prices last November and requested states to reduce taxes. Some states reduced the tax and provided benefits to the consumers, but some did not do so. Listen in.
अब कई राज्य जैसे महाराष्ट्र, पश्चिम बंगाल, तेलंगाना, आंध्र प्रदेश, तमिलनाडु, केरला, झारखंड, किसी न किसी कारण से उन्होंने इस बात को नहीं माना और उनके राज्य को, नागरिकों को बोझ कंटिन्यू रहा। अब आपसे मेरी प्रार्थना है कि देश हित में आप पिछले नवंबर में जो करना था, 6 महीने डिले हो चुका है, अब भी आप अपने राज्य के नागरिकों को वैट कम करके इसका बेनिफिट पहुंचाइए।
It was a direct attack on non-BJP ruled states in the country. Here's how the opposition reacted to what Prime Minister Modi had to say today. Listen in.
गुजरात को कितना रुपया दिया? हमारा कोई एतराज नहीं है, दे दो जितना भी मर्जी। यूपी को कितना दिया? महाराष्ट्र को कितना दिया? बंगाल को कितना दिया? जो ऑपोजिशन स्टेट है उसको अब रुपया देते नहीं, लेते हैं। और इसका बाद हम आ भी करते हैं तो हो जाता है चर्चा। आप कोतल भी करते हैं तो नहीं होता है बदनाम।
First, he advised his party governments in Karnataka, in Uttarakhand, in Himachal Pradesh, in Madhya Pradesh. If he reduces, then if he asks others, they will do it. We all should work for the welfare of the people instead of putting blame on each other.
He is very particularly quoting only the opposition ruled states to reduce. Not even Gujarat nor Karnataka or Madhya Pradesh or Uttar Pradesh. Whether he can say that they will also reduce their tax? No, he will not. So the quantum of what collected by the government of India is much more, is 3 times than what is collected by the states.
So you heard both the sides, viewers. Let's now try and decode some numbers for you. If you are in the national capital, for 1 litre of petrol, you have to pay 105 rupees and 41 paise. But dealers have to pay only 56 rupees and 52 paise for 1 litre of petrol, because rest is the tax component here. Now, out of 105 rupees and 41 paise, centre is getting 27 rupees and 90 paise as excise duty, while Delhi government is getting 17 rupees and 13 paise. That's the VAT that is charged on petrol, and similar sort of arrangement is there for 1 litre of diesel as well. This was just an example of the national capital. Now, there is a gap of 10 rupees that we can see between centre's tax and between state's tax here. And since every state levies different taxes, this gap is going to be different in each state. Now, experts have always raised the issue of high fuel tax in India, but it's an easy source of revenue for centre as well as states. So the question is, who will bell the cat? Now look at this, another graphic that we are going to show you. In the year 2021 and 22, while centre earned 3.73 lakh crore rupees as revenue from fuel, states earn 2.07 lakh crore as revenue from VAT on petrol and diesel. This shows that centre should actually slash excise duty on petrol and diesel because it's earning more than all the states put together as revenue from this so-called fuel tax. But now centre says that it shares 42% of its revenue with states. And that's the reason why Prime Minister Modi today also made a special request to the chief ministers of the non-BJP ruled states specifically to reduce VAT on petrol and diesel. Now, does this mean that centre has ruled out a reduction in excise duty? Does it mean that onus is now on states? When we talk about one nation, one tax, why can't fuel tax come under GST? Those are some of the questions that are something that we are going to focus on today. But before I go across to my guest joining us on the broadcast on this very crucial debate tonight, I have to go across to my colleague Somit joining us on the broadcast because there is a reaction, Somit, that we have also got from the Chief Minister of the state of Telangana. What exactly is being said by the state of Telangana on what Prime Minister Modi said today?
Well, previously when this was reduced by the central government, at that time BJP mounted pressure on the Telangana state as well as on Andhra Pradesh also. We can say that because they have clearly asked the states to reduce the VAT. They are leveling upon the fuel, and because also we can clearly see that Telangana as well as Andhra Pradesh are leveling high taxes, and the prices are. We can say that in top 5 Andhra Pradesh and Telangana we can notice, and reacting to that after Prime Minister Modi's statement, requesting mainly the opposition states to cut down the fuel prices. The VAT on the fuel prices and from the states, KTR has responded. Chief Minister's son, the modern IT minister, has responded and stated that fuel prices have shot up because of the NPS central government, name calling states for not reducing VAT, even though we never, the states never increased it. And he also stated that in last 7 years they have never increased the VAT on the fuel prices, and also he stated that, states don't get 40% of the rightful share, because the cess imposed by the government of India in the form of, looting 11.4% from the state, and only the states are getting around 29.6 for the year, financial year 23, and please scrap. We also requested the central government to scrap so that, state can give a petrol for around 70 rupees and diesel for around 60 per litre all across the India. And he has stated this, and even earlier, they are clearly reluctant, to reduce the prices, and clearly stated that states, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, will not be reducing the fuel prices.
All right, Somit, thank you very much for the moment for joining us and putting things in perspective for our viewers. Let's now go across to my guest joining us on the broadcast this evening. We have Dr. Kaushal Kant Mishra, who is spokesperson of the BJP, A.K. Vajpayee, advocate and spokesperson LJP joining us. R.S. Pandey, former Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, live with us this evening. We have Saket Gokhale, TMC spokesperson, live with us. Dr. Anshul Avijit, National Congress spokesperson, also on the broadcast this evening. Good evening to all of you. Thank you for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Mr. R.S. Pandey, you're the former Secretary of Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. So I want to begin the discussion with you. Every time we have this scenario that fuel prices start going up in the country, we see a blame game between the centre and the states. We know that it's an important and an easy source of revenue for both central as well as state governments. But then what is the solution? Because the tax component is quite high.
Yes, you are right. The high prices are because primarily for tax reasons. Crude prices have gone up, nobody can do anything about it, but then we can certainly do something about our level of taxation. You are also right in saying that the center also earns substantially, the states also earn a good amount. Now the point is, center is asking the states, you reduce. States are saying, you have reduced to some extent, but you reduce more. I think to put things in perspective, we have to look at how much is the share of the excise duty, how much is the share of the sales tax or VAT. If you look at the last 7 years, I have looked at the PPAC data. You have made a reference to the same data. Since 2014-15, in the last 7 years, in 2014-15, the excise duty collections by the center was less than 1 lakh crore, 99,000 plus crores. Now, in 2020-21, it went up to 3,72,000 crores. So more than 3.5 times. Now, what happened to the states' revenues? All the states taken together as a whole, in the first year, in 2014-15, it was 1,37,000 crores. And after 7 years, it became 2 lakh plus crores. So the point is, it has not even more than doubled as far as the states' collections are concerned. As far as the center's collections are concerned, it has gone to more than 3.5 times. I think there is a scope for reducing more by the center than by the states. If you look at another figure, now the PPAC data gives us the figures for 2021-22 for 9 months. And if you look at the 9 months figure, the collections by the state is around 42%. And by the center is 58%. I'm not talking of the entire petroleum sector, I'm only talking of POL. If you look at the whole petroleum sector, then it is disproportionately still further in favor of the central government. So I think both should reduce, but the center should reduce more. I think there is no case for such high level of excise duty. It has never been in the past in many other countries. Look at the countries around us. They are selling cheaper than us. So I think there is a need for rationalizing the taxation structure. Well, center and states can go on arguing. My dues are there, you are not getting more. Center can say something more. Our collections have been more. But the point is, never in the past, the center collected so much on excise duty. Never in the past, the states also collected so much. But since the states have collected less than double the amount in the last 7 years, the center has collected 3.5 times more. I think the center should reconsider. Now, another point.
Center has collected more, so center has a bigger responsibility.
Nobody is agreeing on one
Mr. Pandey.
GST rate, because the revenues will go down.
Yes, we'll talk about GST, sir, in just a bit. Mr. Pandey, 1 second. We'll talk about GST in just a bit. Let me also get the opening comments from my other guests on the points that you have made. Who's
now the highest level of
Yes,
taxation is
Mr. Pandey, if you're able to hear me, we'll talk about the GST part in just a bit, sir. I want to first go across to my other guests to understand this blame game that keeps on happening all the time. And you say that looking at the numbers, and you've quoted some very important data for our viewers. And it's interesting to see that how from 2014-2015 to 2020-21, the revenue that center earns from fuel tax or excise duty has actually gone up significantly. Even though for states too, this amount has gone up, but not as much as it has gone up for center. So that's your argument. Saket Gokhale, you know, Prime Minister Narendra Modi today specifically took the name of certain states, and these were non-BJP ruled states, and West Bengal was one of those. How will you like to respond to what the Prime Minister said today? Because many states, including BJP and some non-BJP, had actually reduced VAT after centre's decision to slash excise last year.
Thank you so much, Heena. To first of all just set the record straight, in February 2021, the government of West Bengal was the first to reduce VAT on fuel before the centre even decided in November to reduce excise duty because elections were coming up in 5 states. Now, let me just put forth about 3 to 4 points which I wish to. Number one, and I'm going to dismantle the arguments. The Prime Minister did an ambush today. He called it a COVID meeting and then suddenly decided to make this political bombshell because he knows there is anger among people due to fuel price rise. Number one, the centre claims that, oh, but we are spending so much and therefore we need more revenue, whereas the states are not. We are the ones providing all subsidies. Not true. Example number one, the centre got vaccines from the manufacturers at 250 rupees. from Bharat Biotech as well as Serum Institute, whereas the states had to procure those vaccines at 650 rupees. So here's the thing, it wasn't free vaccination only paid by the center, the states also paid for it. Second, states also pay food subsidies. Number three, and now here's the most crucial part. The state of West Bengal has 97,000 crores worth of GST dues and other arrears. So these so-called subsidies that they claim they're paying the state governments for, 97,000 crores is pending with the central government. So on paper, they say that we are giving the states this much money, we are doing this, we are doing that. But that money is reaching, as the Honorable Chief Minister of Bengal said today, BJP states are getting their GST revenues and their subsidies. We are getting ours only on paper. So we have made a very major policy announcement this evening. We appeal to Prime Minister Modi, if 97,000 crores of our pending dues, I mean, it's not a favor or a charity, 97,000 crores of our pending dues, if the central government releases that to us, we will from the next day, for the next 5 years, not charge a single rupee of VAT on petrol and diesel. That is the announcement that we have made. Number four, and this is important, the center claims, but look at our expenditures going high up.
Right.
Well, that's because you're spending on things like Central Vista. Why did you have to spend so much money on Central Vista? Why do you have to raise taxes? Look at all the frivolous expenditure this government is making. Another thing that this government very conveniently doesn't tell you, you have looked at the revenues from fuel taxes of the center and the state. But do not forget that all the oil PSUs are owned by central government. That's a majority shareholder. And all these companies have been profitable. So every time these oil companies make a profit, the center as the largest shareholder also making dividends from the oil companies.
Okay, I'll get Dr. Mishra to respond to that. But before that, Saket, you called it an ambush by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. You know, during the parliament session, your party and many other parties in the opposition kept on asking the Prime Minister to make a statement on rising fuel prices, and he did not. And today, when he has actually, you're saying that, you know, you're calling it actually an ambush.
We wanted a debate and not a monologue. We wanted a debate in parliament, not a monologue where the Prime Minister immediately shows his statement on TV, but doesn't show what the Chief Minister has responded. That is conveniently cut out from the television. Only his part is broadcasted.
Okay, Dr. Mishra, please respond. TMC calling it an ambush, and the point that was made earlier by Mr. R.S. Pandey, former Secretary Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas, that looking at the way your revenues have gone up from 2014-15 to 2020-21, it is your responsibility more than the responsibility of the states to actually slash taxes on fuel. I just gave an example of the national capital. 10 rupees more than what the state government is earning is what the center is earning as excise.
है ना, मैंने मिस्टर पांडे को सुना, उन्होंने कहा कि आस पड़ोस के जो देश हैं वहां पे हमसे सस्ता पेट्रोल मिल रहा है। उस पे मैं ये जवाब देना चाहूंगा कि आस पड़ोस के जो देश है वहां पे इकोनॉमिक कंडीशन की क्या हालत है, श्रीलंका देख लीजिए, पाकिस्तान देख लीजिए, बांग्लादेश देख लीजिए, कहीं की भी हालत हिंदुस्तान से बेहतर नहीं है। जबकि इस समय कोविड का प्रॉब्लम चल रहा है। और दूसरे मेरे दोस्त ने जो बोला कि सेंटर विस्टा में क्यों खर्च कर रहे हैं, सेंटर विस्टा में नहीं खर्च हो रहा है सर। आप ये देखिए कि कोविड की वैक्सीन फ्री डिस्ट्रीब्यूट हो रही है ऑल ओवर कंट्री में। कोविड का सर बीच में हम अभी आपने बोला हम डिस्कशन कर रहे हैं ना, तो डिस्कशन सुनिए ना, हो सकता है आपको कोई चीज पसंद ना आए, अपने बारे में बोल लीजिएगा। कोविड पे फ्री वैक्सीनेशन हो रहा है, कोविड केयर फ्री हो रही है, आयुष्मान भारत योजना पूरे हिंदुस्तान में लागू की गई है। कुछ जो विपक्ष शासित प्रदेश है वहां को छोड़ करके बाकी आयुष्मान भारत योजना से सब लोगों को मेडिकल केयर देने की कोशिश हो रही है। और जो मेन खर्चा हो रहा है, आप ये देखिए कि आज भी रक्षा बजट में हिंदुस्तान पूरे वर्ल्ड में तीसरे नंबर पे है, जबकि हमारे बगल में चाइना का प्रॉब्लम है, हमारे बगल में पाकिस्तान का प्रॉब्लम है। तो हम सेंटर विस्टा पे खर्च नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम देश की सुरक्षा के लिए खर्च कर रहे हैं। आज भी इतनी कोविड महामारी के बाद जब आप देखिए हर जगह फ्यूल प्राइसेस बढ़ रहे हैं, जो नॉन फ्यूल प्रोड्यूसिंग देश हैं वहां पे फ्यूल प्राइसेस बढ़ रहे हैं, और जहां पे ग्रोथ रेट सब जगह डाउन हो रही है। आज हिंदुस्तान की ग्रोथ रेट किसी भी डेवलपिंग कंट्री में सबसे अच्छी है। और सबसे बड़ी चीज यह है कि इसके बाद भी इतने सारे लोग जो कोविड में बेघर हो गए हैं, उनको मुफ्त अनाज की योजना, पूरे विश्व की सबसे बड़ी मुफ्त अनाज की योजना गरीबों के लिए दी जा रही है। जिनको आज सहारे की जरूरत है। तो ये कहना कि सेंटर अपने लिए खर्च कर रहा है, सेंटर व्यवस्था के लिए खर्च कर रहा है, ये तो आप समझ सकते हैं ये विपक्ष की बात हो सकती है और कुछ नहीं हो सकता। इसी का एक एग्जाम्पल देकर अपनी बात खत्म करूंगा कि आप देखिए कि अगर हम कंपेयर करते हैं यूपीए के 7 साल को और हमारे इस 7 साल को कंपेयर करते हैं, तो यूपीए के 7 सालों में जो ग्रोथ हुई है पेट्रोल की प्राइसेस में, वो पेट्रोल पे 77% की हुई है और डीजल पे 66% की हुई है। वही 7 साल आज जब हमारी सरकार चल रही है 40% हुई और 56% हुई है, ये ग्रोथ रेट है। जबकि इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में कोविड की वजह से क्रूड प्राइसेस का प्राइस करीब करीब 60% से ज्यादा बढ़ गया, उसके बाद भी हमारी जो इन्फ्लेशन है वो यूपीए गवर्नमेंट से कम है। उसके साथ साथ इतना बड़ा डिफेंस बजट, वर्ल्ड में तीसरे नंबर पे हम आ गए, तो ये कहना ये एक पॉलिटिकल स्टेटमेंट ही हो सकता है।
डॉक्टर मिश्रा ये कहना चाह रहे हैं कि आप एक जेब से पैसे निकाल रहे हैं और दूसरी जेब में डालने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, नहीं, तो यही होता हुआ नजर आ रहा है।
नहीं, आप ये देखिए कि एक छोटा सा एग्जाम्पल दूंगा। सबसे अच्छा टैक्सेशन सिस्टम वो होता है जो भगवान करता है। जैसे कि जब बारिश होती है तो वो बारिश सब जगह बराबर होती है, लेकिन जहां ज्यादा पानी होता है वहां से ज्यादा पानी लेकर रेगिस्तान में गिराया जाता है। तो जो लोग अफोर्ड कर सकते हैं उनके ऊपर थोड़ा बर्डन डाल के अगर हम 80 करोड़ गरीबों को खाना दे रहे हैं तो मुझे नहीं लगता
तो आप कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते डॉक्टर मिश्रा, लेकिन टैक्स रेट को तो कंट्रोल किया जा सकता है ना। Dr. Anshul Abhijit, if the problem is about different rates of VAT and tax by center, then why are we then not pushing for bringing fuel tax under GST so that these kind of arguments end? Because what we only see all the time, whenever it is about fuel price spike in the country, center blaming the states and states putting the onus on the center because center seems to be earning more than states as fuel tax revenue.
Heena, let me just first answer to my friend मिश्रा जी। उनका तर्क तो यही है जो पहले जो धर्मेंद्र प्रधान जी का तर्क था कि हमेशा कि हम जो पैसा ले रहे हैं गरीब आदमी से वो जन कल्याण में इस्तेमाल हो रहा है और वापस उन्हीं को दे रहे हैं। मतलब मुफ्त खाना, निशुल्क खाना और वैक्सीन, उसके लिए हम और डेवलपमेंट विकास के लिए उसके लिए गरीब आदमी से पैसे लेना जरूरी है। तो मतलब आप चोरी उन्हीं से कर रहे हैं, फिर तोहफे के रूप में उसकी तब्दीली करके उन्हीं को वापस दे रहे हैं। देखिए किस तरह का आर्गुमेंट है। मुझे तो समझ नहीं आता। और बार बार धर्मेंद्र प्रधान जी ने जो पहले तेल मंत्री थे और उसके बाद हरदीप पुरी जी ने यही आर्गुमेंट दिया, यही तर्क दिया, उनका वक्तव्य यही था। तो मैं तो हैरान हो गया सुन के। लुक एट द इमोरैलिटी Heena, of this particular argument that you are taking money from the poor. The fact is that excise duty, indirect taxation, is a regressive taxation. Regressive, by that it means that rich and the poor pay for it in equal measure, but the poor pay for it more dearly because they can't afford it. The rich get away with it. So in effect, they're paying a greater price for the rise in petrol. Not just that, the relentless increase in excise duty of petrol ever since this incompetent government took over from 2014 is 13 times, and by which this government has earned 24 lakh crores. वो कौन से जन कल्याण में गया है मुझे नहीं समझ आता, कहां पर गया है, किधर गया है, और ये भी नहीं पता कि इस्तेमाल हुआ है कि नहीं हुआ है. So the entire argument is wrong. Mr. Pandey actually brought out PPAC figures which draws out the imbalance between the state and how much they are getting and how much the center is earning. Actually, in 2020, 2021, the central government, through the increase in excise, earned about 3.72 lakh crores. And the states got barely anything because what this government has done very cleverly, what this government has done is kept increasing the additional excise and the cesses on tax, which are not divisible, which are not shared by the state. In fact, your basic taxation, which is actually shared by the state, actually remains at 1 rupees 40 paisa or something like that. It's a minimal amount. I also want you to draw to the fact about the Congress government and what it did in the UPA times. उन्होंने कांग्रेस गवर्नमेंट में अंतरराष्ट्रीय बाजार में जब पेट्रोल के प्राइसेस बहुत ऊंचे थे तो यहाँ के जो गरीब आदमी थे इनको महफूज रखा, क्योंकि 2014 में पेट्रोल प्राइसेस 5 थे 106 अंतरराष्ट्रीय बाजार में, लेकिन दिल्ली में पेट्रोल का दाम 71 रुपए था और डीजल का दाम 55 रुपए था। जरा देख लीजिए। और फिर हमें और तरकीबें थी, ऑयल बॉन्ड्स थे कि ताकि हम गरीब आदमी को महफूज रखें और इससे जो प्राइस राइज है इनसे अलग रखें, ये नहीं आंच नहीं आने दें।
मैं सिर्फ ये जवाब देना चाहूंगा कांग्रेस के मेरे मित्र से कि जो आप ये कह रहे हैं कि 85 रुपए का दाम था जब आपकी सरकार गई थी और पेट्रोल के सिलेंडर का प्राइस भारत सर
भाई साहब,
मैं आपके बारे में नहीं बोला था, प्लीज इट डजंट लुक नाइस। ठीक है, आप मेरे बारे में मत बोलिए। जवाब सुनिए, जब आपकी सरकार गई थी तो उस समय पेट्रोल का प्राइस 85 रुपए लीटर था, आज वो 100 रुपए के आसपास पहुंचा है 7 साल के बाद। और जब सुन लीजिए, और उस समय गैस सिलेंडर का प्राइस
105 रुपए। दिल्ली में पेट्रोल का दाम जो है आज 105 रुपए है। डॉक्टर मिश्रा, वन एट अ टाइम प्लीज, वन एट अ टाइम, वेरी क्विकली डॉक्टर मिश्रा प्लीज रिस्पॉन्ड।
उससे सस्ता पेट्रोल आपको उत्तर प्रदेश में मिल रहा है, तो ये सरकारों को सोचना पड़ेगा, प्रदेश की सरकारों को सोचना पड़ेगा कि वो अपने वैट को कम करेंगे। और दूसरी चीज, ये बात करें ना, ये बताइए आपके समय में जो पेट्रोल प्राइस था इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में, उससे आज इन्फ्लेशन हो के करीब 60% बढ़ गया है, जबकि क्राइसिस चल रही है। कोविड की इतनी बड़ी महामारी आई, उसके बाद भी इंडिया की ग्रोथ रेट सबसे अच्छी चल रही है। डिफेंस बजट नंबर 3 पे है, 80 करोड़ लोगों को
BJP
मुफ्त
keeps
में।
on saying that it was an unprecedented situation that the government had to face, and that's the reason why what happened was important. Dr. Mishra, you've made your point. I know Saket as well as Anshul want to respond. 1 second, gentlemen, 1 second. Let me also get the comments from AK Vajpayee. He's been patiently waiting for quite some time. You heard the arguments from all the sides here. My question is, eventually, you know, this is what happens. Politicians keep on blaming each other. Center blames the center, states blame the center, and us, the people, you know, we continue to suffer. My point is, when some states can reduce VAT, why can't the other states do that? I'm not talking about BJP, non-BJP. I'm just, you know, asking a direct question.
What has been done today? Prime Minister had made a simple request and appeal to all the states who have not reduced the VAT. Kindly do it. And why it should be done? Because it's a federal structure. Central has more responsibility in compared to the state responsibility. This is what the Prime Minister has said. When other states can reduce it, why not these 7 and 8 states can do it? Now they say, since the GST dues are there, you release them, then we will reduce the VAT. Can it be conditional? Now you know the situation of the country. For the last 2.5 years, we are facing the problem of Corona. And the second responsibility, being a welfare state, is that we must protect the poorest of the population, which is, we are having 80 crore people about. We are giving free ration to them. We are bound to give it. We have to help them. So this cannot be the argument that we can't reduce it. Because the constitution does not give us, empower the central government to make instruction or make a direction. Only request can be done. So why to hue and cry? You should understand the overall situation of the country. If you appreciate this, you should reduce. Otherwise, you have to face the music. The people are there. It is not that this country is facing the problem.
But Mr. AK Vajpayee, you know, I gave an example of the national capital. When I started the show, Mr. Vajpayee, I gave an example of the national capital. So, if in Delhi we are paying 105 odd rupees for 1 litre of petrol, you know, 27 rupees is going to the centre, 17 rupees going to the Aam Aadmi Party government in the national capital. If you look at these numbers, the difference clearly shows that centre is earning more. So, don't you think the responsibility is also on the centre? Why can't we have one tax as far as fuel is concerned, so that, you know, this fight ends forever?
Oh, no. This argument cannot sustain because of one reason only, that the center has more responsibility. Like we are developing the infrastructure of the country. This is not to be done by the state. The state has a very limited area. Can you compare the responsibility of the center with the state responsibility?
Saket Gokhale, Anshul Abhijit, the response is center has a bigger responsibility. There was pandemic, it was unprecedented time for the center too, and that is the reason why nothing can be done. Yes, Saket, first and then Anshul.
One correction, one limited correction, that you said that majority portion goes to the center. यहाँ पे एक चीज बताना चाहूंगा कि जो सेंटर को जाता है उसका भी 41% स्टेट को वापस जाता है। ये बात इस प्रोग्राम में नहीं सामने आ रही है।
नहीं जाता है।
ओके, तो मेजॉरिटी
नहीं
स्टेट
आ रही है। आपने शायद मेरा इंट्रो ध्यान से सुना नहीं, मैंने क्या कहा। मैंने अपने इंट्रोडक्शन में ही बोला था कि प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने आज ये भी बात कही है कि भले ही सेंटर का रेवेन्यू ज्यादा नजर आ रहा है, लेकिन सेंटर को लगभग 42% के आसपास जो है स्टेट्स के साथ शेयर भी करना पड़ता है। इसलिए सेंटर बार बार कह रही है कि स्टेट्स को वैट रिड्यूस करना चाहिए। तो ये बात मैं कह चुकी हूँ ऑलरेडी।
हाँ, जो
साकेत गोखले
कही ये बात इसमें भी लागू होती है।
वो मैंने एक एग्जाम्पल दिया था। आप देखिए 27 रुपए सेंटर के पास जा रहे हैं, 17 रुपए स्टेट के पास जा रहे हैं। साकेत गोखले
27 रुपए का 12 रुपए वापस आ रहा है।
It's only the BJP talking here. Can we give a factual rebuttal to what the gentleman is saying? He's talking
Gokhale,
right.
go ahead.
Yeah, he's talking right now about fuel prices under the UPA now. Now, I have a very simple question. This is not me. Statistics, international data. For the entire duration of the COVID pandemic, crude oil prices reached almost $0 last year. But since 2014, excise duty has only been increased year by year. So my question is, when the global crude oil prices were at $0, how much were fuel prices cut by the government of India? How much excise reduction did they give? They were paying, in fact, fuel prices went negative last year. Producers were paying people to take fuel off their hands. That's number one. Number two, this expenditure argument constantly we keep hearing, it's as if the center is running the entire country and the states are not doing anything. Do any of these respective gentlemen from the ruling alliance know that there are subjects on the state list, the union list and the concurrent list? Health, for example, during the COVID pandemic, we were left on our own. We didn't get a penny from the PM Cares Fund. We had to ramp up the health infrastructure. We had to get oxygen for people. Wherever the center was responsible in places like Delhi, we saw people were dying without oxygen. Whereas in Maharashtra and West Bengal, we were the ones who ramped up the health infrastructure. PM Cares did not pay for it. That money came from the state government. And the other thing is, the gentleman from LGP says, how can GST dues be conditional? Arey boss, that is money that is owed to us. You're telling me that I owe you some money, which I'm not going to give to you, but you keep paying me more. What kind of logic is that? You pay us the money that you owe us, and when we'll happily start, we'll bring it down to zero.
You've made your point, Saket, and before I go across to Anshul for a quick response, I want to ask you, when other states like Odisha, Punjab, Rajasthan can slash VAT on petrol and diesel post-November, because November is the time when fuel prices were quite high, and that was the time when, you know, countries were also beginning to look at dipping into strategic petroleum reserve to, you know, in a way help bring down the crude oil prices. So that was a very, very difficult period for the entire world. So your government reduced VAT in February 2021, but it did not reduce VAT in November 2021 when this regime started. So why can't it do now is my question, when other states can?
Okay, here's the thing. The Prime Minister conveniently mentioned non-BJP states today. He forgot to conveniently mention that Madhya Pradesh, which is ruled by the BJP, currently has the highest VAT in the country. He did not mention Madhya Pradesh by name, first of all. So that was very convenient of the Prime Minister. I mean, his data is very selective that he has. Second thing, yes, Punjab reduced their VAT because there are elections happening in Punjab. So, I mean, even the central government did not hike prices for 4 months.
Rajasthan had no elections. Odisha had no elections.
Here's the thing. Look at the populations of different states. Look at the exchequer. Look at the revenues. Today, for example, a state like Goa is very rich compared to a state like Jharkhand, which is much larger in size and population. We can't compare apples and oranges. Expenditures and revenues of states are different. Today, if you see that Goa has a smaller population, Jharkhand is bigger, but Goa has a much higher per capita income than Jharkhand has. Jharkhand is a poorer state. How can you compare the two with each other?
Right. So, Anshul, Avijit, is it politics of convenience that we are seeing happening on fuel prices?
Heena, regrettably, we are completely missing the point, and we are buying into the Prime Minister's narrative. What he has done through his guile and deceit, through his misrepresentation, which he always does, is completely deflect the blame from the center to the states, so the states can fight it out, and he can sit pretty and keep increasing the excise duty of of petrol. I'm giving a political point here. So the states, some of them which he categorized as sort of Darwinian, brutish, don't care for the people, basically opposition states, and the other states are so humanitarian, they feel so empathetic towards the people. Those are the BJP ruled states, and he wants them to locked into an eternal battle while he keeps increasing prices of fuel. And we are into that. We're actually debating 3,000 crores, 2,000 crores, or इसने इससे ज़्यादा दिया, इसने कम दिया, ये क्या हो रहा है? You should be brought. We are falling into the trap which the Prime Minister has set. That is not the real story. The real story is the economy has been completely wrecked by this highly incompetent government. And because of that, they have no sources of revenue. They don't know what to do. And by the way, ये महामारी की बात बार-बार कर रहे हैं ना, मिश्रा साहब भी कर रहे हैं, मेरे मित्र, कि सारा दोष महामारी को दे दो, उसकी वजह से सब कुछ हो रहा है. अब मैं एक्साइज ड्यूटी भी बढ़ाने जा रही है. मैं कह रहा हूं हमारी आर्थिक स्थिति महामारी से पहले ध्वस्त हो चुकी थी. बेरोजगारी दर सबसे ऊंचा था 45 साल में. मैं सारे आंकड़े आपको बताता हूं. तो महामारी को दोष नहीं देना चाहिए. सब कुछ खराब हो गया था, और इसीलिए that is why the Prime Minister, instead of finding ways of raising revenue, which this amateur government can't do, it's so incompetent. They don't understand macroeconomics. They can't do it, and therefore they are stealing from the poor people through regressive taxation because they don't know what to do, and starting this kind of brutish battle and competitiveness between states. अच्छा, वो आपस में लड़ते रहे और हम एक्साइज ड्यूटी बढ़ाते रहे, हम तो खुश होते रहे. अरे सारी इनकी गलती है. This is what the real story is. The fact is that we are completely wrecked our economy, and this government is bankrupt of economic ideas.
Heena ji.
Okay, Dr. Mishra, quick response, because this is what many economists have also felt, that probably this was your only source of revenue. It was the easiest source of revenue for you as well during the pandemic. Does it mean that the center failed to, in a way, nurture other sources of revenue?
हिना, ये गवर्नमेंट जब से आई है तब से देखिए जितना गरीबों के लिए काम हो रहा है उतना किसी गवर्नमेंट ने नहीं किया. ठीक, अगर आज भी देखें पेट्रोल प्राइसेस के बारे में, महाराष्ट्र, पश्चिम बंगाल, तमिलनाडु,
पर मिश्रा जी, ऐसा क्यों लगता है कि आप एक जेब से पैसा निकालते हैं, दूसरी जेब से पैसा दे देते हैं?
हेना जी, सुन तो लीजिए.
यहाँ से आप टैक्सेस हमसे लेते हैं, वहाँ दूसरी तरफ कहते हैं कि हम तो फ्री राशन दे रहे हैं आपको. ऐसा क्यों लगता है?
गरीब आदमी जो आज बीपीएल की रेखा के नीचे है, उसके पास चलाने के लिए स्कूटर नहीं होता, वो पेट्रोल के लिए नहीं जीता. ठीक, उसके लिए रोजी रोटी जरूरी है. सच्चाई ये है कि जितने भी अपोजिशन के स्टेट है, महाराष्ट्र, वेस्ट बंगाल, तमिलनाडु, तेलंगाना, आंध्र प्रदेश, केरला, झारखंड, यहाँ पर वेट प्राइसेस नहीं कम किए गए हैं.
गाड़ी, जिसके लिए स्कूटर, जिसके लिए मोटर बाइक जरूरी है, वो कहाँ पर जाए फिर? ये भी तो एक बड़ा सवाल है. वो भी तो इसी देश के लोग हैं मिश्रा जी.
और कांग्रेस गवर्नमेंट स्पोक्स पर्सन मेरे मित्र बोल रहे थे कि मनमोहन सिंह जी का ये कहना था, पैसे पेड़ों पे नहीं उगते. ये हम नहीं कह रहे, ये मनमोहन सिंह का अपना स्टेटमेंट था. और सुन तो लीजिए सर,
जी,
ये कोई तरीका नहीं होता भाई.
दिस इज नॉट वे. मैं आपके बीच में बिल्कुल नहीं
बोलता हूँ, आप मेरे बीच में ना बोले बेहतर होगा. और अगर आपके सरकार की इतनी विजडम होती, प्लीज, हाँ, अगर सरकार में इतनी विजडम होती तो ये समझिए कि आज हम डेवलपिंग स्टेट होने के बाद 80% पेट्रोल हम आयात करते हैं. ये हमारी सरकार है जिसमें नितिन गडकरी जी के नेतृत्व में अब हम हाइड्रोजन फ्लूट की बात कर रहे हैं, अल्टरनेट सोर्स ऑफ इकोनॉमी की एनर्जी की बात कर रहे हैं. आप लोगों ने क्या किया? हम इथेनॉल से पेट्रोल बनाने की बात कर रहे हैं. आगे आने वाले टाइम में आप देखिएगा जो 80% डिपेंडेंसी है पेट्रोल पे, जो फॉरेन से हम इंपोर्ट करते हैं, वो घट के हम 10% पे लाएंगे और पेट्रोल प्राइसेस को कंट्रोल करेंगे. तो विजडम जहां से आप सोचना शुरू करते हैं, खत्म करते हैं, वहां से हमारे प्रधानमंत्री सोचना शुरू करते हैं, और हम गरीबों के लिए काम करते हैं. जातीय धर्म से ऊपर के काम करते हैं.
You heard, the political parties here, the representatives of political parties here on the show. You understand this sector very well. Unfortunately, what we only see happening is this blame game. What is the solution now? Do you think bringing fuel tax under GST is the only way to end this blame game, so that eventually people also start getting the benefit if crude oil prices in the international market begin to go down?
Alternative source of energy is the only option.
If it is brought under GST,
Mr. Pandey,
it must be brought under GST, but the states are not agreeing. The center is also not really pursuing it to the extent it should. So I think GST is one answer, But till that happens, both should reduce the level of taxation. And since center is earning more, center has increased much more, both require money. The states have their own responsibilities. They also require revenue. Center has its own sphere of responsibilities. It does require revenue. But since center is earning more, it has increased more, I think center should reduce more. The states also should reduce. Prime Minister is right.
Mr. Pandey, do you see that
some states have
intention?
reduced. All states
You
should
heard
reduce.
what the Prime Minister had to say today. You heard what the oil minister has to say. You've heard what the finance minister has to say on this particular issue. Do you see that intention within the government? Or do you think, like the Prime Minister said today, the states who have not still slashed VAT on petrol and diesel, which is like injustice to people of this country, to people of these specific states that he mentioned today, that should happen?
The real injustice to the people of this country is that they have to pay more than 100 rupees a litre for petrol and close to 100 rupees a litre for diesel. This is the biggest injustice. And the biggest contribution to this injustice is the level of taxation. And there, the center is levying more taxes than the states. No state has really earned more than twice in the last 7 years. The states differ from state to state. The situation differs. Like if I get the figures from the PPEC report, in 7 years back, Rajasthan earned 8,000 crores per year. In 7 years later, it earned 15,000 crores per year. Uttar Pradesh, 12.5 thousand crore in 2014-15. 7 years later, it earned 22,000 crore. Now, in no state, the revenue from VAT has gone to more than twice. In center's case, it has gone from 14-15 to 2020-21, more than 3.5 times. I think center should take the lead. It must reduce more, convene a meeting of the states, tell them what you are earning when and what you are earning today without getting into what responsibility you have, because everyone has some responsibility or the other. Everyone's sources of income also varies from one another, and all should try and reduce.
Right.
And ideally, they should all agree to come under VAT. Now, total VAT, the highest ceiling is 28%. Now, look at the level of taxation. It is 40 to 50%. So, even at the highest VAT level, we are earning much more from the consumers. Now, that must stop. There may be a special rate for petroleum products, but let there be a serious discussion on bringing it under VAT. That is one possible solution.
All right. Very well said. An important point you've made, and we really hope that this actually will begin serious conversation on this particular issue, and this blame game should now end, and people should also now get some relief. Thank you very much, all of you gentlemen, for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening.